All right, today we're going to talk about something that can feel, well, a little abstract, but it's actually super practical, and that's clarity. We're going to take this kind of vague idea and break it down into something tangible, something you can actually build for yourself.
And it all kicks off with this really simple but honestly powerful idea. See, it's not about knowing everything. No way. It's about knowing the right things, the things that really matter, the stuff that's foundational to who you are and, where you're actually headed.
Okay, so have you ever felt that quiet background hum of stress? It's not loud, right? It's not yelling at you, but it's just always there. It's like this subtle friction in your day. Well, that feeling, that's often the sound of unclarity. It's a sign that something, somewhere is just a little out of alignment.
And that feeling, it leads us straight into our first big topic, what some people call the inner argument. It's exactly what it sounds like, that constant internal conflict that starts brewing when we just don't have a clear direction.
So when you aren't clear, what does that actually look like? Well, you end up chasing things that totally conflict with each other. You want that big promotion, but you also want way more free time. You say yes to things when your heart is screaming no. You work so hard for these goals, but when you get there, you feel kind of empty. And all of this, it just fuels that constant low-grade stress we were talking about. It's like climbing a ladder for years, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall the whole time.
And that's the real takeaway here. A lack of clarity isn't just confusing, it is flat out exhausting. It makes everything feel complicated and heavy. Every little decision has this weight to it because you're always debating yourself.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? What does clarity really even mean? Let's dive in and look at the actual architecture of it. This definition right here is so important. Clarity is the ability to see yourself, your path, and your priorities, but check out the second half, without the fog, without the distraction, without other people's voices in your head, and maybe toughest of all, without your own excuses. It's about getting to that pure, clear signal.
And getting to that pure signal, it's not just some intellectual thing. It's not something you just think your way into. It's a whole body experience. Real clarity happens when three very specific things line up perfectly.
First up, it's what you think. This is your mind, right? Your logic, your plans. On an intellectual level, you totally get what needs to be done. The path makes perfect sense.
But then there's what you feel. This is your heart, your gut, your intuition. The path doesn't just make sense on paper, it feels right. You get that inner gut check that just says, yep, this is it.
And finally, the third piece of the puzzle, what you do. These are your actions, your hands. You're actually out there walking the path that your head and your heart have already agreed on. And when those three, think, feel, and do, are all in sync, man, progress feels so natural. It's not a fight anymore.
But, okay, if it's just about getting those three things to line up, why is it so hard for so many of us? Well, it's because there are things actively working against our clarity. Let's call them the clarity killers. And there are three big ones.
All right, let's break these down. First up, there's just too much noise. This is the world screaming at you. It's the opinions, the ads, the expectations from everyone and everything, and it just drowns out your own inner voice. The second killer? Fear. Fear totally warps your perspective. It's like looking through a funhouse mirror. It makes all the risks look gigantic and all the possibilities seem tiny. And the third one? This one's sneaky. It's avoiding the truth. This is when we kind of look away from the hard questions because deep down, we're afraid of the answers.
And that's why this is so on point. Getting clarity isn't for the faint of heart. It actually requires bravery. It takes real courage to do this stuff.
Okay, so we know what gets in the way. Now for the most important part. How do we actually build clarity? How do we fight back against those killers? Let's get into the practical, actionable stuff.
And this idea right here, this is a total game changer. You don't find clarity. It's not hiding under a rock somewhere. You build it. It's an active process, something you construct brick by brick.
So what are the bricks? What are the building blocks? First, stillness. You have to quiet the outside world so you can finally hear yourself. You can't hear a whisper in a hurricane, right? Second, honest reflection. This means asking yourself the real questions and then actually listening to the answers. Third, and this is so crucial, writing it down. You got to get those thoughts out of your head and onto paper. It takes them from being this jumbled mess and turns them into something you can actually look at and make sense of. And finally, number 4, choosing truth. This is where you prioritize what you now know is true over what's just comfortable. This is the brave part. Now, when you actually commit to this process, to building with these blocks, the result isn't just a single aha moment. It's a fundamental shift in how you live. You start living a life that's actually aligned.
And just look at what happens when you're clear. You start spending time with people who actually help you grow. You work on goals that feel meaningful, that truly matter to you. You stop carrying around all this energy that isn't even yours to carry. And your choices, they feel lighter. And you know which way to go. That inner argument just goes quiet.
So as we start to wrap this up, I want to leave you with a few really powerful questions to think about. And look, these aren't for quick, easy answers. They're for some real honest reflection. Let's start with this one. What do you already know deep down that you've been ignoring?
And this next one, takes some of that bravery we were talking about. Be really honest with yourself here. Where in your life are you staying confused on purpose because getting clear would force you to actually change something? Is it your job? A relationship?
And finally, let's end with the biggest question of all. What would you choose if you truly trusted yourself? If you could strip away all the noise, all the fear, all the expectations, and it was just you, what would that true inner voice tell you to do? What would you choose then?